If you've ever considered buying a franchise, or maybe you thought the road to riches for you is going to be able to leverage your content and your ideas and franchise your business model, you're going to love today's show. Hi, I'm Melanie Benson. I'm America's leading small business optimizer, and this podcast is all dedicated to learning with other really powerful experts and business owners who have optimized their business on the road to success. And really what optimizing means is that you figure out how to make something perform extraordinarily well, and the key idea is how to actually stop working less in your business by achieving exponential results. And today I've invited someone that I had the privilege of meeting last year. She's probably one of the sweetest, literally, people I've met. But I want to introduce you to Jean Allen Kuhn. Now, Jean bought 2 existing failing franchises that no one would touch and turned them into cash-generating machines within 12 months, which is a huge feat, which made me want to get inside her brain and pick it apart and figure out like how she's doing that. And now she's helping other small business owners and franchise owners help them make more money in their business. So welcome, Jean.
Hi, thanks so much.
Yeah, and so your franchises that you bought were the Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, right?
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, just since we've talked last, I actually just closed one of them
Okay.
last week.
Oh,
But that
how was that?
really, you know what, it's in a mall, or it was in a mall, and unfortunately the mall rents have just gotten so high in such a bad economy that it just was not profitable. And while I could have continued to work for break even, or even less than break even, or a little over break even, right around that break even point, it just was not worth it to me. If I can't work and make enough money, that I always look at something, if I couldn't support myself, if my husband left me, it's not worth it.
That's one interesting parameter.
I mean, we've been married 34 years.
So he's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere.
And you're way too sweet. Let me tell you, when I met Jean, this is what really stuck out. And I don't even eat chocolate. I very rarely have it. But Jean walked up to a few of us and literally was so generous and gifting this amazing, extraordinary chocolate, which of course I had to try. And I thought, who does that? Like, only someone who, first of all, is a good business person and wants to help other people enjoy the product they sell. But, it was just such a sweet gesture, and it really always stuck with me. And I thought, what a great way to stand out in a crowd is to give something that literally sweet. So what got you into... Yeah, what got you...
that you didn't eat chocolate.
Well, it's a sugar thing. I just don't eat sugar, so
I get it.
It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it sometime. You're like the girl who doesn't eat sugar is bringing the sugar franchise owner onto her show.
I might have a slight sugar addiction.
Well, it could, kind of helps with that business model, right?
Yeah.
So what got you into franchises? Like, why was that the path for you, and how did you end up getting into where you're at now with it?
It's really kind of a long, funny, ugly story, because I have been an entrepreneur for the last 28 years, and 29 years almost, and I had never intended to buy a franchise, but I have a friend who owned a Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory in real close to my home, and when she would get busy, a couple times she'd invited me in to help out, and it was really kind of fun, when you go there and help out for a couple hours. So she had mentioned that there was a store that was for sale, and she said, go look at it. And so I went down and I checked out the store, and I couldn't find the store. I was right on the same block. I was right basically in front of the store and couldn't find the store. When I was walking down the street and I was looking in the store windows, the table that was pushed up against the window was just full of flower arrangements. And I walked by it 2 or 3 times. I didn't, I was so close I couldn't see up high to the sign, and I thought it was a florist I had kept passing, and finally I had to call and say, what was the address of that again? So when I finally found the store, I was able to walk in, and right away I knew if I thought that was a florist when I walked by it, what must other people think when they walk by it? So when I walked in, I could see 1,000 things that could make that store profitable with just a little tweaking. I mean, seriously, probably under $2,000 of tweaking was able to get that store turned around to be able to become profitable right away. The owner who had that store lived out of state, and that store had only if you even want to call that profit, had profited $5,000 the year before. Definitely not enough money that if my husband left me, I could afford to support myself.
Right.
So, but I knew that store could be profitable when I saw it.
Yeah, almost like imagine you being. Did you ever see the show The Prophet on CNBC?
No.
Oh, I just imagined a scene out of that show. He's a consultant, and he goes into these different brick and mortar type businesses, and he figures out what's wrong, and he optimizes them so they can generate higher cash flow. And he either injects his own cash into it, or he walks away. He's like, if I can't invest in you, I'll walk away. So anyway, I just had like a whole scene of Gene on The Prophet.
That's something I'm definitely going to check out, though, because it sounds like it'd be super fun.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's not an active show. I think they only did 5, but they were really good.
Okay.
So, as a franchise owner, I think a lot of people who are either thinking of investing in a franchise or who are actively involved in franchise, because I've worked with a lot of different franchise owners over the years. I have a good friend of mine is the franchise owner of the Jersey Mike's, or he's not the franchise owner, he's the training director for the Jersey Mike's out here in Southern California. And I've got a couple people who built franchises as part of their business model. And I think there's some pretty interesting challenges that they face. Some pretty common challenges. And I'm kind of curious, what do you think is the biggest challenge that the people that you've worked with inside the franchise world are experiencing right now?
Oh, I know what the biggest challenge is. The biggest challenge is that most franchise owners buy a job. And then they work in their business, and there's no way to grow their business because they're working in that business all the time. And I actually made that same mistake myself for the first 4 years. I've owned my one franchise, the one I have now, for almost 12 years, and that was the first mistake I made. And I happily somehow found my way to the E-Myth, the book The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and I think I only read the first 9 chapters, and that book just changed my life. Put it down, I had everything I needed from that book to get me out of my store. And once I got out of my store, then I could start work on marketing it. Because I wasn't exhausted. I had 3 small, well, not small, but young children at the time. And I was exhausted by the time I came home. Plus, I was running another business during the day. I was running actually the chocolate store during the day, and then I had another business I would go to from 4 to 9. So once I got rid of the other business, that helped me get out of my store. And that's the biggest mistake right there that people make.
I think any business owner can make that mistake. I don't know if that's unique to the franchise, but I can see how that would actually be 10 times worse for them because they've invested. It's interesting that the dynamics and the shifts between somebody who starts their own business and a franchise business owner, because when you invest in a franchise, you are putting a significant amount of money down right up front. Right. And I think what happens for someone who is a business owner or an entrepreneur, they kind of slowly leak that money out as they're building up their business. They don't do that initial outlay. So I don't think they realize the amount of money they're spending on all the wrong things, or what's going out and how it's a little out of whack. And so the fact that they've spent this much money and now they're working as a job would be very overwhelming.
Right. It is. And I had never worked retail. Remember we talked about I had never worked retail before in my entire life. Even as a kid, I'd never worked retail. And that was a big surprise for me, especially the holidays, because I'd been in direct sales while my kids were real little. So I took pretty much the whole month of December off. But there was none of that.
Yeah, especially chocolate. Chocolate and holiday goes right together, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you're working with a business owner who's facing these common challenges, they're working in the business, they've been stuck there, maybe I know some of the other challenges that especially like if you're franchising, really differentiating and making sure that you've got that business in a box and you've got the tools for someone to be successful. What is it that you find is a really powerful strategy to help a franchise owner or someone who's thinking about franchising make that business work better? And maybe it's different.
Part of it is marketing too, because I think when so many people, they buy a franchise for a couple reasons. Number one, they have not been a business owner before. So when they buy a franchise, like you just said, it's a business in a box, and they're given the whole system. And if they follow the system, they're told that they will be successful. And they pay a marketing fee. They pay royalties and they pay a marketing fee. So they assume that their marketing fee is going to help pay for marketing for their store. And it really does not work that way. or at least for most franchises, while you pay a marketing fee and you maybe get a website or some posters or something from the franchise, you also have to market that store locally. And I think unless you're a McDonald's or a Burger King, which everybody knows, when you start a new business, even a small franchise, you need to market that. And you need to do sales, and you need to do promotions, and you need to get out there and meet your local customers. And I think that's a huge mistake that people make.
Yeah. So, what are some ways that you would counsel someone to do that? Because by the way, even if you're not a franchise business owner, what Jean's talking about here can be really powerful.
Yeah. Well, first thing I do is I look at their marketing, and then I will sit down and help come up with some marketing promotions for them. Because that's one of those things that I never really understood when I was very, very young, how important marketing was. But once I really learned about it and found started working it in my other businesses, man, is that fun. So to me, that's really what gets me going, and help other small businesses learn how to market their business, because I think, just like I was, they're so afraid of the word marketing. What does that mean? How much money is it going to cost me? And so that's where we start. We start, especially with retail. I'm pretty good with, what do you need to do? Do you need to up your customer transaction? Do you need to bring more people into the door? You have to look at what you need to start with. And I like the fact that start with what you have, which is your existing customers.
Great. Yeah. And I think, kind of that's an optimization technique. What do you already have in place that you're underutilizing their power or their effectiveness? Good. I love it. Well, so you've been an entrepreneur all these years. You got into the franchise world. I'm sure there's been some twists and turns and ups and downs. What would you say has been one of your biggest challenges as an entrepreneur?
That's a really good question, because I guess my biggest challenge was when I bought the franchise was getting out of the franchise. That was my biggest challenge, because when having been an entrepreneur, I had a lot of freedom, and when I had that franchise and I was working in that store every day, there was no freedom. So that was probably my biggest challenge. I was used to being self-employed and having a lot of freedom, with my kids and stuff, and I was not digging the fact that that franchise was pretty much sucking the life out of me.
So really, first of all, I hear you saying two things. One, you got to know what you're getting into, and you got to have realistic expectations and understand what you're investing in. But two, is really understanding how you're wired and what do you need to feel successful and what do you need to feel fulfilled. And if you're going to be working in a business all day, every day, and that's not how you define success, that could be a real mismatch. Yeah.
The first two, seriously, when I bought my franchise, I had not even been accepted by the franchisor yet. It was the guy who was selling it said, look, you buy it, you close this day or I'm shutting it down. And I, not having even contacted the franchise yet to find out if they would accept us, we bought it. And I said, well, what happens if they don't accept us? And he's like, well, then it's just Jean's Candy Store. So luckily we bought it. So we were running it, owning it before we were even accepted by the franchisor, and luckily they accepted us. But and part of the deal was the manager would stay with me for a month, because I hadn't been to training, I'd never worked retail, I didn't know how the register worked, and after 2 weeks she left me, and she just felt like I knew enough, and I was probably at that point a moderately trained employee at that point, and I remember crying in the back. I found a bucket or something I sat on. I was sobbing, because you're right. I did not know, and that's the kind of entrepreneur I am, though. I will jump in with both feet. I will jump off the cliff and hope that I will find a parachute on the way down. And I've always been that way. So that was no different for me, to just jump into something that I see that I like. I knew I could make it work. I'm a hard worker and motivated and ambitious, but I might have made a mistake there.
Okay. Do tell.
Now you know all my secrets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I'm assuming inside of that, at some point, there was a turnaround point. And, you say in your bio that you were able to increase the cash flow and turn things around. So what was the pivotal point? What did you learn, and how did you put it into action?
Well, I didn't have any, well, first of all, I was able to put it into action because when you buy an existing franchise that's failing, they're usually pretty cheap. People just want to unload them.
Right.
So that was part of it. I was able to get a really good deal on that store. So I had cash flow and I had cash that I could stick back into the store. So this was like 12 years ago almost. So newspaper advertising was still going on. So I started advertising, something they had never done before. I started putting coupons out there. I started getting involved in my community as far as volunteering within the business association and working different, just getting to know people. I started networking, which I had never done before. So I really started telling people, hey, I bought this store. It's going to be awesome one day. Here I am. Come check me out.
So really, it's like about hustle. Being willing to be out there, being in front of people, getting your name out there, and I think there's an energy that's very underused, and my guess is you have this energy, and that's perseverance. Like when you decide to do something, I think you're all in, and you will just go and do whatever needs to be done. Yeah.
Absolutely, because that was why I was crying in that back room that day was because I thought, I had that. Everybody has that moment of self-doubt. I'm very lucky that never sticks with me for more than 10 or 15 minutes, because while I was sobbing and having a little pity party in the back room, I was thinking, oh my God, I have just bankrupted my family. I just spent all this money here. My husband has a 1,000% faith in me, and I have just bankrupted our family because I hate this business. Now, I hated the business because I wasn't fully trained. I hadn't been trained by the franchise. I didn't know at that point whether or not the franchise was going to accept us. So I had a lot of self-doubt going on there and a lot of actual doubt going on there.
Well, and I think it's very reality-based. And, like if you feel like you're drowning because you don't know what you're supposed to do, you are going to feel overwhelmed. And so, so what I hear is that getting the training helped. Getting out there and just being in front of people and getting other people excited kind of helped you bring your inspiration back. Was there anything else that you feel like was really helpful to turn things around and get that cash flow back up? And, obviously, you had a steal of a deal, but you had to do some things right to start making money again.
Well, yes, the marketing was very important. But the other thing I did right away is I did probably the first 4 years, I did not pull any money out of that business. So for 4 years, thank goodness I was in a position where I could afford to work for free while I built the business. But that first 12 months, everything obviously was going back into that. I was working crazy hours, but I didn't pull anything out for 4 years until I felt that the business could really sustain me taking a check.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a unique position because I don't know that everybody could do that. So you have to keep in mind, like, what are the numbers? And so, one of the things I always tell people is you got to run the numbers and you got to look at what's it going to take to make that business profitable? What is it going to take to break even? And or that particular offering or that project or whatever you're looking at. And you took a leap of faith. I would tell people to run the numbers before they jump, but luckily for you it worked out. Yeah, you're like, in hindsight, I'm going to tell you to do all the stuff I did not do because I learned my lesson, right? Well, it's the same with me. I did it all wrong in the beginning. I knew how much I needed to make to cover my nut. I didn't know what it was going to take to sustain that level of sales and revenues. And so 14 years ago or whenever it was when I took the leap, I was like, oh my God, I was crazy.
Right.
But you know what? Being an entrepreneur is about being crazy, isn't it? Yeah, you got to be willing to do the crazy things that no one else is willing to do because no risk, no reward.
Right. And how many people, like you just said, how many people are willing to work for free for not even a few weeks? They're not willing to give up that paycheck for a few weeks in order to have something better later on. Or maybe they can't. But
I think it's a Steve Jobs quote that entrepreneurs have to be willing to work in the short term, like work like crazy in the short term for something really cool in the long term, like to get what they ultimately want in the long term. Have you heard that quote?
I had not heard that quote.
Yeah, something like that.
True.
I'm really butchering it, but yeah. Well, and speaking of quotes, I'm wondering, like, because I think quotes are very inspiring. They sometimes help us remember the right way to focus our mindset and to get tuned into what's important. Do you have a mantra or quote or like I know some people like affirmations that really helps you stay tuned in?
Yeah, I do. And I found this quote, and actually I found him when I was in my very mid to late 20s, and I met Zig Ziglar for the first time. And I was in a room of about 800, but I know he was just talking to me. And he said to me, you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that really hit home for me, and that struck a chord. And at the time I was in direct sales, home party sales or something like that, and I took that and I really started building my team with that. And it was all about serving them, and that is something that has stayed with me for the last 20 plus years.
That's a great one. I love it.
I love that quote.
So what's next for Jean?
Well, right now I am coaching my fellow franchisees. I hold a conference for them. Our corporate office only holds one every 2 years, so I do an annual conference every year for just my fellow Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory franchisees who want to get together and do nothing but spend 2 days together figuring out how to build our businesses, how to make more money, what can we do. So I'm getting ready for that. That's coming up in Vegas, March 10th and 11th. And then I just work with other small businesses locally to help them grow their business.
That's
great. That's really what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, that's the inspiration. So where can people find you, Jean?
Well, they can find me here in the Chicagoland area under about 12 feet of snow. But if they want to find me electronically, they can Jean Kuhn, JeanKuhn.com.
Cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck with the chocolate factory, the Rocky Mountain chocolate. So fun to meet you, and again, you are just such a extraordinarily warm and just such a great connector and networker. And I love that the way in which you bond with people through chocolate. If I could eat sugar, I would definitely be all over it because, let me tell you, chocolate's my favorite. Oh,
that's funny. So do you do the sugar-free stuff?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes in moderation. It has a very strange effect on people. If you've ever had sugar-free chocolate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Awesome. Well, Jean, thanks for being here, and thanks for listening in today. We'll see you again next week with another really great guest.